The world's largest lake stage is situated on Lake Constance in Bregenzer, Austria. Within 1 month, an audience of 175,000 visitors will watch a spectacularly designed and directed opera. This unique environment was used to perform music theater since 1946. During World War II, Bregenzer was severely damaged. When Europe came to peace again, 3 visionary men had the idea to bring back artistic life with a week of concerts and a light opera.
Die Idee war, da wird das ganze Staatsopernballett auf dem Bodensee daherkommen. Also das war dieser Ausdruck. Ja, haben sie mir gesagt, du bist doch Bühnenbildnerin, so mach ein Bühnenbild. Darauf habe ich dieses Bühnenbild gemacht. Und das waren dann die ersten Bregenzer Festspiele. Das waren ja dann 2 von den Schotterschiffen und da haben wir drüber ein Plateau gelegt und dort hat das stattgefunden, was man jetzt auf den Fotos sieht. Und ich habe dann diese Grundrisse bekommen und habe ja die technischen Zeichnungen auch gemacht, wie die zusammengehängt werden.
Maria Vanda Migliore, a trained set designer, fled Vienna and was told it would be safe to come to Bregenz.
Auf der sogenannten Flucht von Wien vor den Russen, nicht? Damit wir nicht vergewaltigt werden. Da sind wir mit dem Rucksack gegangen und haben uns angehalten an den verwundet heimgekehrten Wagen, wo die verwundeten Soldaten drauf waren und die aber im Westen zurückgekommen sind.
Bregenz was still under French occupation when the festival idea was born. The borders to Germany and Switzerland were still closed, so they needed to issue day visas for the only paying audience they could find, the Swiss.
Wir haben uns dort sehr gerettet gefühlt, neben der Schweiz.
The Swiss brought so-called love parcels with them, which contained food and gave the artists a special treat.
Da haben wir zum ersten Mal wieder weißes Mehl und das war so ein Schweizer Kuchen und Schlagobers gekriegt. Aber das haben wir ja alles nicht gehabt, weil wir haben auf Karte in Wien gegessen. Die Atmosphäre war also Nachbarland der Schweiz, die ja nicht im Krieg war. Und wir werden es schon packen.
The festival week was a big success and got repeated each year while steadily growing in popularity. In 1980, the time had come to build a proper opera house to have an adequate infrastructure. The lake stage was turned into a solid structure with a concrete core. Shortly afterwards, in 1983, with Alfred Voptmann being the new artistic director, the festival was showing a magic flute that was pushing the boundaries at that time. From then on, the set designs made headlines with their iconoclastic character, the Flying Dutchman, Nabucco, Fidelio, all put on stage by director David Powney and his set designer Stefanos Lazaridis, were part of that big success. In 1999, David Powney became the successor to Alfred Voptmann as head of the Bregenzer Festival. Landmark productions were to follow with Un ballo in maschera by set designer Anthony MacDonald and director Richard Jones, and Tosca, designed by Johannes Lajaca and directed by Philipp Himmelmann. In 2008, the set for Tosca was also used as a setting for a pivotal scene in the James Bond movie Quantum of Solace. For the 2017 season, S. Devlin was assigned to create a spectacular stage design for the most beloved French opera, Carmen. Stage designer Devlin has designed many operas as well as countless big arena concerts and fashion events. Together with the staging ideas of Caspar Holten, Carmen became yet another huge success for the Bregenzer Festival. For the first time in Bregenzer history, a set was planned in a way that it could serve as a huge video screen for the video ideas created by Luke Halls.
in my studies of Bregenz, which I have studied closely, I know every single design, I've looked at every single video. My feeling is the ones that have most impacted on me are the ones that really play with the surreal, that say, what happens if I put a book or a skeleton, or if I put a giant chair or a giant table or a huge bust? What happens if I put that in this extraordinary lake nature setting? So playing with scale was very important to me, and I think all humans respond to the surreal. Everybody responds to playing with scale, and it's always fascinating to people to see a giant hand in a small human being, so I wanted to start from there.
Not only do the sets look surreal, building the stage has its own magic moments, which underneath the water surface turns into an enchanted landscape.
I started with many different gestures. I had the cloak of a toreador swirling. I had a bull with its horns. I had a dancer. There was a flower. We went through many. And in the end, we almost, in a spirit of exasperation, threw a souvenir packet of cards from Seville Airport tourist shop into the air. And we realized this gesture of chance, of taking a chance, of looking for liberty, of looking for freedom, of saying, what happens if I throw up all the rules? What happens if I tear up the rule book, if I throw everything in the air? Where will it land? And that gesture seemed to be absolutely right for this piece.
Before the big moment of the opening night occurs, the entire process from the idea to the finished stage design takes around 3 years. In 2014, back in her London studio, S. Devlin and her team start to visualize the ideas and to simultaneously work on a physical model in a 1:100 scale. During this process, visits in Bregenz are necessary to check the technical feasibility. S. Devlin does not hesitate to tear apart the model and to rearrange it until the engineers seem to be content.
It's literally like having a 3-year gestation period of a child, and suddenly someone said, here's the child. I'm really pleased. It's quite a technological feat and an engineering feat to make something so heavy look so light, and to make something so structured look so free of structure. That's very difficult, and the team here have done it really well.
While the engineers had to find ways to make everything look as light and airy as possible, the hands were certainly the biggest challenge artistically. The hands transmit the idea for now, but they are still several steps away from the model that will be used as the reference for the 22-meter tall hands of the Bregenz set. Even with 20 years of experience in Bregenz, theater sculptor Frank Schulze still feels challenged by the size. Oversized body pieces are the most difficult to sculpt, especially when the hands need to depict an energetic motion like they do here, throwing the cards up in the air. When Frank Schulze is finally happy with his results, after many elaborate work steps, the sculptures get presented to S. Devlin in Bregenz, where she gives Frank some last remarks for slight alterations. The artistic process of modeling the hands is now finished, and they get scanned in order to have absolutely accurate measurements for the engineers and technicians. 18 months later, the set on stage is in full swing. The concrete core, held up by iron piles, is the only fixed installation of the lake stage. On top, a massive steel construction gets erected, on which the so-called flying cards will be attached.
The technical team here have to do a very different job to most theatre teams in that they're not really making theatre, they're making architecture, they're making public sculpture. They have to deal with the wind, the rain for 2 years, the weather. So they don't work with the kind of theatrical builders. They work with industrial engineers, civil engineers. They work with people who normally build buildings. So the conversation and the terms of engagement are very different. But the great thing is they're concentrating on just this production. Most houses are thinking of 3 or 4. This whole team here is really focused on this one production, which is a real privilege.
The flying cards need to be lighter than the rest and have a transparent net glued on top, since there are 15 massive loudspeakers placed behind them and visible to the audience. Every single step needs to be synchronized in order to get a flawless surface on the big 7 meter by 4 meter playing cards. Simultaneously, the cards that the performers will walk on get treated with plaster and paint in a different workspace. The third surface for the cards is a metal grid, which will get lowered into the water during the show and therefore needs to let the water travel through. It is particularly hard to get it painted in the exact same way as the other cards. When the rehearsals begin, 6 weeks before opening night, the set is almost completed and only goes through some adaptations and finishing processes. Mid-July, and it's finally opening night for Carmen at the Bregenzer Festival. Around 175,000 people will have seen it by the time the festival closes a month later. Every set is so elaborate and time-consuming to assemble that it remains over the winter and will have its revival in July 2018, where, for another 26 performances, it will be high tide for Carmen.